What's going on, guys? My name is Oscar Ortega with Cream Digital. I'm going to show you one of my favorite use cases with AI or for AI for a business so that you can implement this almost immediately. And that's for interviews, right? Basically, automating your HR processes, or at the very least, your first round, so you can go ahead and speed up your time to fulfill a role. By 3x, 10x, I mean, really depending on how many interviews or requests you get per week or how many roles you have. So first and foremost, we want to break down exactly kind of the first couple of steps when it comes to interviewing, right? People submit the resume. And so we can have a process where even if it's on Indeed, from Craigslist, from Career Builder, we can set up a process where we can segment each individual resume and we can qualify them based on parameters that you set. So let's say you want to have specific sales requisites, or you want to see specific goals that were hit on a resume, whatever that is, right? Whatever your parameters are, we can segment for that, and we can separate qualified from unqualified. And the ones that are kind of in the middle, we can set those aside for human review, right? So that means that we can capture at the initial start, about 90% of all qualified candidates, and then leave that 10% that is somewhere in the middle for someone in your staff to review. Okay, that's first round, and that'll save you hours per day, right, of having to screen individual interviews. Now, there is a tendency for people to use AI to create their resumes, and so this is just a way to circumvent that as well, right? You're going to be using AI to read their resumes, and so there's little tricks of the trade that you can add into your description to kind of mitigate some of the uses of AI. But again, the idea here is to be able to screen candidates as fast as possible to get them to interview, or the first round of interviews, right? So the first round of interviews is really interesting because we can do it by role. So let's say you're going to have a sales role or a sales manager role, right? Or any other role, customer service, whatever that may be, right? We can have specific questions for that role, right? And build out an AI agent that the interviewer or the interviewee would call and then be able to be screened, right? So they'll state their name, they'll state all the information that is able to identify them, and then we're able to have the interview. And just like someone on your staff would interview these individuals, the same questions are asked, right? Where it gets really interesting, and where I think separates it from the rest of the pack, is that we're able to objectively score each individual interview. It's difficult when it comes to human intervention, because oftentimes, depending on the individual that's interviewing them, they might be subjective scores, right? And so in this instance, everything is done objectively. You provide us with, for example, the list of questions, and you also let us know each question, how much it weighs on the overall interview, because not every question is going to have as important as other questions, right? Because some questions might be experience based, some questions might be personal based, and they weigh differently on the interview scale. And so the goal here is to have a weighted interview, right? Depending on the actual questions being asked, be able to take the transcription, score the entire interview, and then be able to provide a score, right? From a 1 to a 10 or a 1 to 100, and the summary, right? So suppose you have 10 interviews that were done in 1 hour. That can all be done with AI. And so the AI scores it. There's a sheet or a dashboard that you guys have, and you can see exactly what, you can see the recording, one, if you want to, but you can also see a summary of the entire interview. You can see a score of the interview, and you can see why the AI scored it the way it did. And so you can then segment, right? Let's say we're going to do a 1 to a 10. Anybody that scored over a 7 automatically gets invited to the next round of interviews, right? And then they get sent a calendar to then be able to book with either you, right, or someone on your staff, or the next round of AI interviews, right? Whatever you see fit. But this allows you to speed your process up significantly faster, because you're able to interview instantly. The moment that they submit their resume, within seconds, they're either qualified, disqualified, or sent for human review. If they are qualified, they're sent a link to be able to then hold their interview whenever they want to, right? So 24 hours, 365, whenever they want to have the interview right away, boom, they can have that interview and get them into your system as fast as possible. So again, the idea here is to fulfill the role with the most qualified candidates as fast as possible, right? Because time is money. So that is kind of the gist of it when it comes to AI, and human resources. You can also set up automations where if you only have 2 rounds and then they kind of crush the first 2 rounds, you can send them an offer almost immediately based on parameters. I mean, you can really automate a lot of these different processes as you see fit, and really speed up, again, your time to fulfill a role. And then finally, what I suggest people do or start implementing is custom GPTs in their business to be able to speed up the onboarding process, right? This is trained on your data. So if it's a sales role, if you have specific SOPs, if you have specific frameworks they want them to learn as soon as possible, once they're hired, boom, set them up with training on their custom GPT and get them onboarded as soon as possible so that you can then have, again, you fulfill the role faster, but you also train them faster. So if it took you before 30 days to interview somebody and then have them begin training 30 days later, you can probably cut that time in half or more, which means, again, you're able to get qualified candidates into your business as fast as possible and trained as fast as possible. So, again, high level overview of what can be done. I'm sure you guys are going to have a ton of ideas as we're going through this, but just some ideas as to what AI can do for your business when it comes to human resources. We talked about the recruitment and interview automation, which is what we went through here, but also, again, training and development, which we talked about with the custom GPT. And that's just one example. There's other examples that we can talk about in the future video. Employee engagement and retention, right? Our AI agents regularly check in with employees. They can track engagement levels, suggest strategies based on real-time feedback, essentially communicate with your staff, see how everything's going, provide feedback, and then you can start creating these analytics or commonalities amongst, if everybody on your sales team is saying that the lead quality, for example, is not very good or it's suffered, that's something that you can instantly kind of nip in the bud and be able to change and look into with your marketing department. So then that way you can improve that, right? So this is real-time data that you can extract from your staff to have a much more optimized business. And then finally, which something that's really cool for me is the succession planning, and that AI analyzes performance metrics, training data, employee aspirations to identify potential leaders. So it's the high performers, the high achievers are identified, and you're able to carve out a path for them to, one, retain them, but also allow them to see the potential to move up in your company, right? So all that can be done faster. Without the need to have to hire additional staff or learn new tech, right? So you're running a much more optimized business, and so that is our perspective and our use cases when it comes to AI in the HR space. If you have any questions or want to see this in action, by all means, below this video there's a link to book a call with us. We can show you exactly what we did for a few different companies and how we can install that process for you. Have a wonderful day.